Create, awakening the artist inside you. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. This is episode 17. We are now going to welcome our guest without wasting 1 minute. We have Stephen Young, who is an aspiring Wargames miniature designer. And that is his fourth interview with us. So welcome back, Stephen.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Franz. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's always great to hear from you because we're learning so much about how many good things we can do with art. And today you're going to tell us all about miniatures, what they are, first of all, and then we're going to go on from there, obviously. So you tell us, what are these miniatures?
Right. Well, the miniatures I'm speaking about and being specific about today is Wargaming Miniatures. So people may have heard of Warhammer or Games Workshop or miniature war games, and you can have there are historical war games, there are futuristic war games, there are fantastical war games, and I've got into sculpting the miniatures themselves, so building them up from making a little armature, like a little skeleton out of wireframe, and then building them up in epoxy putties and sculpting them at 35 to 40 millimeters in scale. So that would be a whole figure, but it would be within 40 mil. So really, really small figures in action poses that people would collect an entire army of them, and then they'd fight little battles against each other, rolling dice with rules and casting spells or shooting each other with weapons, depending on the game system.
Wow. It sounds like an impossible thing to do for the normal person walking on the road.
Yeah, something like that. It's a challenge. Obviously, you've heard of sculptors and people that do things large scale, things that are massive, big statues. Well, I do things a lot smaller. I can't fit 10-foot sculptures into my house or into the bedrooms that I've sculpted in, but I can fit all these tiny little miniatures, and they fit away into carry cases, into foam carry cases that I can carry around with me from place to place. So it's been a sort of a necessity in a way that I've not had the space to be able to do large scale. So I've gone with this much more fine detail, tiny little characters. Like the heads are about as big as a pinhead. And it's just been the way I've started to work, and then as I've got better and better at it, I've become more efficient at getting things sharper, more detailed, more professional.
That's very interesting to know that you are actually going through a process. So you didn't wake up one day and you just did a finished product, but you are on a learning curve. You also define yourself as aspiring. So that's very good. But of course, my question has to be, how did you get into them? Is it something that mostly boys do? I'm always curious to see if it's a gender thing or anyone likes them.
I think boys or girls can like it. I have seen more guys interested in it than girls, but there definitely are both genders interested in the hobby. I started with a game called Hero Quest, which is where you play as a wizard or a barbarian character or a dwarf or an elf, and you play against orcs and monsters. And I started painting these little figures that you could collect, and that painting turned into changing some of them. Bought them handmade, and I thought, well, if I can part hand make it, I can whole hand make it. I can make whole characters by hand, and it went from there. And from past interviews, I've talked about animation and model making. Well, those two interests came together. My love of war games and my love of animation and model making was spliced together, and I thought, well, I could make these characters, the whole character, and my interest in animation and poses and caricature and graphics all comes together in the same place. And I find that very exciting.
Well, of course it is, because you can see, wow, I'm expanding, I can do more and more. Okay, so what are these miniatures made of? Is there a particular material that people need to find?
Well, the ones I sculpt are sculpted in something called green stuff, or the posh word is needotite, and it's like plumber's epoxy putty, where you get it in a blue and yellow strip, and you bond the two together so it becomes green. Blue and yellow make green, and then you have a 2-hour working period where you can sculpt it, and it goes hard like plastic. Now, if of course it's got hard and you're not happy with the detail, you can cut that off, file it down, and re-sculpt over it, and you can do things in layers. The final pieces that you buy from Games Workshop are usually nowadays in plastics or resin and so forth like that. A lot of the characters they'll digitally sculpt them, but I'm working traditionally with putty.
Is this something you can buy in any shop, or do you have to be a specialized craft place or online only?
I buy mine online, but you can buy it from the Games Workshop as well. You can buy it on Amazon. I bought it from a place called Green Stuff World. There's a few places. It's just the common word is green stuff, and it's a 2-part epoxy putty.
And as for prices, do you think they're like Fimo and polymer clay stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Fimo, green stuff, super sculpey. All of those things work. But the reason I like working with green stuff is because it's not too expensive. I usually buy it in a meter roll or in little strips for about £12, something around that kind of price. And you can switch out different types of materials, but it's quite durable. That's usually why I go with it. It's once it says hard like plastic. Things like Fimo or Super Sculpt, it can be quite brittle, can shatter and break. And I do like that, and it goes to a very good detail. But green stuff is quite durable, goes hard like plastic. So I think it's quite a good medium to work at this scale.
So you can actually use it almost as a toy?
Yes, exactly. It's like a playing piece in a game. So I've made my own little Jumanji pieces with green stuff in the past. You know, the Jumanji film, the little elephant and the rhinoceros to go with the board game that I bought. And it's the same with these. They're little playing pieces, little characters that, you know, you roll the dice, you get a 6, and they move 6 spaces across the board.
So you can create a second life. If you don't like the one you have, by any means create your second life all in 3D.
Exactly. It is definitely an escapism.
How useful is that in times like this, hey?
so useful. In a way, you're looking out over your minions as the army is sprawled before you. And, you know, you take on the general of these armies, and you paint them up, so you give them life, or you're building them in my case, and you collect them into certain teams, and then you can colour them and make them look more interesting.
Yes. I suppose it's vaguely similar to the process of writing a book. When you create these characters, you absolutely believe that they are true and the place where they are is there, and you believe in these people because they are all over in your mind as a true thing. And then if you materialize them in 3D, oh my gosh, these are real things that have a life on their own, and they can influence your own life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many things that you can enjoy about it. You know, because I like monsters and fictional characters and magic and dragons and all that kind of thing. So this is right up my alley. You've got ghosts and warriors and dwarves and goblins and all sorts of things like that. So it's like real life, but it's pushed in an extreme way. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's very good, and obviously a very interesting, time-consuming hobby, I think, because you don't have just a frame to do, you have then the modeling. But let's go through this frame that you will have to make, because of course I suppose they have to stand up somehow, so you will need a frame. Am I doing
yes.
right? So how does that work? Do you have to plan that before anything, of course?
Definitely, yeah. So to give you an example, at the moment I'm doing a He-Man character, which I'll be able to send a picture of what I'm working on at the moment. And he's got one hand that is at a right angle from his body, where he's clenching a fist, and the other arm he's stretching his sword into the air with "I have the power." And he's a very buff, muscular individual. And to get that right, I've looked at multiple different pieces of reference, different facial expressions, different action figures, and you're piecing together lots of different pieces to get it looking right. So to make the frame for it, I measured it against other figures that currently exist. I measured it out, compared it with other things that would be the right kind of size for that scale, and I made a little skeleton out of paper clips and wire. And then from that, you're able to build up on top of that in layers of muscle, and then the clothes and the hair and things like that.
It sounds very resourceful. So next time you look at a paper clip, do not just throw it away.
Exactly.
Remember, you can do so much with it.
I was a nightmare when I worked as a teacher in a college. I used to I'd go in the store cupboard, paper clips. Oh, I have a thin paper clips, thick paper clips, bits of garden wire. I'd even get the sandwich ties on the sandwich tie bags and strip the plastic off that to get the wire inside to make them into little armatures.
So just as you remind me, are clothes hangers also the type of things you can use?
Yeah, for bigger things. Probably not for little miniatures, but bigger things like maybe a dragon's wings or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those for a long while, but when people talk about recycling, it's very interesting. And yesterday I was recording an episode with Adele Thomas, who is a fine art textile designer, and she was talking about how much you can recycle. If you go around, you find an old dress, a piece of cloth, you can put it in the rain, you can throw metals on it, you can change the nature, the color, and the message. And so everything that you would look at as garbage becomes actively a piece of art to channel your expression and your emotions. And so I thought, wow, even metal, instead of just taking it to the dump, sometimes there is something you can transform into something else to give it a new lease of life.
I'll say, mixed media. Yeah, lots of different types of materials could be used.
That's very exciting. So let's go to the process. We covered a little bit about it, but step by step, assuming I'm not an artist, I've never done anything like that. How would I approach doing something? If I want to get started, I do something small to see if I could be good at miniatures. What would I do first?
I wouldn't start with a full figure. I would start with a piece that would go with a figure. So say there was a standing character, you want to give him a shield. Perhaps you'd start with a shield, and I would start with something very small, and I would get a piece of plastic or a plastic tube, something to model on top of. Now the thing with green stuff is that it needs moisture, so when you smooth it, you can get a professional sharp edge. So you'll mix your green stuff, and you put a bit of moisture onto the surface of what you want, because you want to have a curved surface to make your shield. So I'd get a plastic curved or flat surface, put some moisture down, and then I'd get my green stuff ball that I'd pre-mixed, and I'd press it onto that wet surface, and then I'd use my metal and my rubber tools to smooth it on top of that surface with wet tools, so that you can get a lovely smooth flat texture on top of it. So it's not got fingerprints on it. It's not all scratchy with the sculpting tools, but you use a rubber tip tool to get a nice smooth finish. And then that way you can get your scalpel and you can finish it off by getting nice straight, precise lines. Depending on what shape it is. I mean, if it was a circular one, you might want to cut out a circle. If it was like a knight's shield, it might be flat at the top and then come to a point at the bottom or whatever like that. And if you want it to curve around, then you put it on a curved surface, so that it has a natural curve to it rather than a flat shield, depending on what your design was. And then, of course, you want to compare it to the scale of the miniature scale that you're making it. So if it's a 15 mil sized character, will be different to a 40 mil character, and you want to check that your measurements are. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I was asking how the process works, and I think you have to really know what you're going to do. So start small.
Yeah, start with something small, like a piece, rather than doing a whole figure.
So you don't get overwhelmed by all the things and all the processes, and then once you get one bit, then proceed to the next one.
Yeah, like the sword and shield would be like a little set, or
yes,
a cape for a character or something like
something simple. Yeah, that's a good idea to get started with small steps and then build up on what you understand. Obviously, as you get comfortable with a medium, see how it feels. Does it make you relax or does it make you anxious?
Yeah, otherwise, because you look at some of the stuff out there and it's amazing. You got people sculpting dragons and monsters and characters that are doing all sorts of elaborate things, and you think, how am I going to attack this? But you just got to start off step by step by step.
Yes.
Build your confidence.
Yeah, I saw a lot of them on sale on Etsy, and they're like 80 pounds, 90 pounds for a few dragons, looking like How to Train a Dragon, Toothless on the Light Furies. They make their skill really go well, but also there is so much jewelry, things like that made with fine, etc. But if you look now at miniature, so the war games, there are so many people that love collecting these figures and want something special. Maybe they want to make a gift for somebody that they know and is passionate about, I don't know, a specific character. I won't make names. And they want to gift you with that particular one, so they can, I can make that. Yeah, so amazing. It's great. Inspiration. Let's talk about how you get your inspiration. The blank mind that artists hate, but obviously, how do you get your inspiration?
Well, my brain is so full of lots of ideas that I can't work fast enough to get them all out. So I don't struggle to find projects. I already have so many projects that I don't have enough time to create all those projects. So I'm very glad that I have Sketchbook to put down ideas. But if I'm looking at other ideas for inspiration, I have specific people and places that I'll go to. So there's a particular designer who works for Games Workshop called Seb Purbe, who is incredibly gifted, very good at designing before he even sculpts the pieces. There are people that work for Weta Workshop in New Zealand who are incredible, like Jamie Best Warwick, and there are some incredible sculptors and artists, and even comic book artists, people that work in the movie industry, and you look at their work and it is infinitely inspiring in so many different ways. And then you look at things like Sideshow Collectibles, who are doing incredible pieces, based on pop culture and pop culture characters that are just so interesting and inspiring and creative that you think to yourself, I've got to make some of this stuff. I've got to make some of these things that I'm interested in. So there's so many places I get inspired.
That's very good to know that there isn't just this blankness. You just turn on the internet, go and watch a movie, go to a shop full of figurines. There is so much art. What was your take when you saw, there were a lot of comments this week about this advert that the government has put out with a dancer sitting there taking off her shoes and say, oh, Jenny might become a cyber expert or a CT expert tomorrow. She doesn't know yet.
Yeah.
I like to collect the view of my fellow artists about this advert that was then deemed to be crass and was taken down. What did you think when you heard about it or saw it on television?
I think people need to have their own decisions really to make. I think some people, I think people lose sight of their dreams. People listen to what other people expect of them. The thing I've started to think along the lines of where I'm going to go personally, linked to that, is what makes me happy. I've only got one life. What do I enjoy spending my time doing and stretching towards? Where do I naturally gravitate towards? And my thing is miniatures. You know, it's something that I'm interested in creating these little characters. And who's to say that you can or can't do something?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, nobody should tell you, oh well, we're deciding that all the creative industry has to shut down. We're not helping you, because everyone has something inside that has to do with art. We're not all creatives. Creativity is very different from being an artist or enjoying art. And so I think that one of the things that give joy to people is to just meddle with it and make yourself dirty, put your hands into something and really see what's going to happen. And that is a gift that human beings have that nobody else has. You know, most animals don't go around painting. I saw some elephants doing it, I know. And I saw some chickens playing the keyboard. That's fine. But most animals don't go around doing art for their mental wellness, do they? But we need it.
Yeah, we definitely need it to release something inside of us that is that's eternal. Yeah, I think something that's very human to creating physical objects of beauty that make us feel better about ourselves.
Yes.
We can't have other people dictate what we do.
Yes, it's up to us to see what resonates, and obviously being stuck for the rest of our life with a job that we do not know how to love because it's just alien to us, it's not good at all for our happiness and satisfaction. And I think you get more stress, more cortisol, more disease if you are hating the job that you have.
Something else about something else that you just said about the advert is that although the industry is shutting down or it's becoming dormant, people can still work on those skills. Whether you have employment or not, you can still work on your creative skills. I mean, I don't just make miniatures. I'm looking at making puppets as well. You know, I've got other avenues of things that are creativity, things I want to make. But this just happens to be where I gravitate towards.
Yes, the fact that it's shutting down is just a decision made by government. It's not something natural. It's profoundly unnatural, and people still want music and arts and architecture, drama and all sorts because we need it. We can't just work. People need to get the mind off. And yesterday when I was interviewing Adele, she was telling me, you know, you are really deeply concentrating into this thing you're doing, and the rest of the world just goes backwards and disappears and becomes a faint memory, and you're in the flow, you are in heaven, you're doing something that you really like. And that is so healing, so amazing that our mind can do that.
Yeah, it's like what you're meant to do.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go to the next bit. We were talking about traditional versus digital. So there are several ways of doing miniatures. So do you want to explain a little bit how does that work?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of miniatures nowadays are made digitally on the computer using a program called Freeform, you know, or CAD or ZBrush, and they're very up to date programs that people use. But before I'm able to pick up ZBrush and work on ZBrush, I've decided that I'm going to go through the traditional channel so that I can sculpt competently before I pick up the digital tool. And I'm copying the miniatures, or even making my own miniatures traditionally, so that I feel comfortable before I move on. So that way, if the digital fails and I don't have the digital as an option, I can still fall back to the original skill and go, right, I can do both, and I can pick and choose where I leave off.
Yes. Do you need to have strong fingers?
Yes, I do get pins and needles in my fingers at that scale. You just have to have breaks. Sometimes I'll even wear a hand brace when I go to bed at night because of the fine detail. But that was also brought on from being a fettler in a welding workshop, in a metal workshop.
Is it if you have like arthritis? If you are suffering from arthritis, would it be very difficult then to exercise pressure on the joints?
It's a challenge, yeah. You would need to exercise them. I wouldn't suggest doing miniature sculpting for people with arthritis or people with very hurt hands that hurt, or the physical job. But it is possible. I mean, I know of a guy, this is a bit of an extreme example, who does battle reenactments, and he had his right hand blown off in a battle reenactment, and he taught himself to sculpt with his left hand. And he's a very, very well-known miniature sculptor called one of the Perry twins, which the miniature sculptors out there all know. But he's had his right hand blown off, but he taught himself to sculpt again with his left hand, and now his right hand, he has a little hook device to hold the miniature, and then he sculpts with his off hand. So that's what you call passion.
Yes, and of course that reminds me a joke that I read many years ago about Captain Hook, who of course was missing an eye.
Yeah.
And he said, what happened to the eye? Well, one day there was something flying and I just hit it with my hands, and then I forgot I had a hook and my eye went. And I'm just thinking about this sculpture that has this bit in there, and he does an automatic jerk reaction and boom!
Metal hand, yeah.
Yes, oh my gosh, it is so bad. But hopefully 99% of the people listening to us are not planning to put a hook on the right hand or to cut it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's always quite fun to lighten up.
Yeah.
And think about all these possible things. I mean, really, Stephen, you have shown across 4 episodes just how many things a person can do to use up all the parts of the brain, to use a 3D, use the textiles, and work in theaters, and all sorts of stuff. And really, you gave so much advice. But if it was something you want to give as a tip to a person who thought, well, actually, I want to try this, what suggestion would you give? What tips would you give?
In miniatures or in art in general?
Well, in miniatures, because now we're talking about them, please.
Okay. Is to make miniatures. You need to make miniatures. You need to create what you love. So if you prefer ghosts and goblins, or if you prefer space marines and aliens, create what you love. Make the thing that you absolutely are passionate about making. And even if it turns out horrid, you're a step closer to being where you want to be than where you would be if you didn't.
Yes, and there won't be the regret, oh, I wish I've done that. I've always wanted to do this. Is there a way where people can look up if there's something on Skillshare, on YouTube? Are there classes to learn the basics of miniature making?
There are classes out there, but they're quite few and far between. I've heard of a place called Adepticon in the US, where you can literally go and talk to people face to face. There are a few YouTube places. There's a guy called Tom Mason who sculpts miniatures on YouTube. I thought he was quite useful. There are a few people that do ZBrush tutorials for people wanting to sculpt digitally. But I'm working traditionally at the moment, but I'm looking at ZBrush tutorials for in the future when I make the jump. He says with an ink.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing this jump. It's been a pleasure to have another chat with you, Steve. I hope to see a lot of pictures you can send me so I can put them together with the article. So hopefully more people will be inspired to get something started in this direction. The miniature sounds very good, especially maybe wild animals, will be quite fun for me to try. So we know you have an appointment, so we're going to let you go, and thank you so much for your time. But before you go, tell me again, what is your Instagram handle so we can find you?
I'm Stephen Young Sculptor on Instagram.
Easy peasy. Any other website that you want to share, or are you okay?
That one right now, because I'm building a website right now, but it's not official, so I may if you follow my Instagram, I will link you from my Instagram to my website when it's up and running in the next year.
That's great. So 2021, watch out for this amazing website full of amazing stuff in 4 different fields, because Steve is doing it all. He's not going to miss any chance to do art in 3D and 4D and anything. So thank you so much for being with us, Steve, and I'll see you soon, and thank you everyone for listening to us, and have a great artistic day. Bye bye to all, and bye bye, Steve.
Thanks, bye.
You have listened to Create with Franz, awakening the artist inside you.